Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Am I the A-hole for pretending not to know my fiancé after she had a meltdown while boarding the plane and was eventually thrown off? So my fiancé, maybe not for much longer, and I were on our way back from a vacation recently. It was a great time and everything went off without an issue. That is, until we started boarding the plane. Now I know better. I only bring a small backpack with essentials in case I don't get my checked bags. That is, until we started boarding the plane. Now I know better. I only bring a small backpack with essentials in case I don't get my checked bags. I can survive out of this backpack, and it will always pass baggage check for size and weight. Done a lot of traveling, so why fight the system? My fiancé doesn't want to listen to my advice and chose to bring basically a regular full-size bag that barely fits the standards of carry-on. But the airline worker doesn't want to deal with the trouble and allows it through. But this time, the airline worker was not having it. It was a packed flight, we were boarding last in economy, and it was just a crap show. I got through just fine with my little backpack, but I could hear the argument from the boarding tunnel thingy, and it was getting heated. I was about to go back and try to smooth it out, but my fiancé rushed past and just boarded the plane. I assume, not having heard it super clearly, that the attendant had given in and let her on. That was not the case. So we found our seats and settled in. I was tired, and I could tell she was upset, so I kind of just tucked into the window and put my hat down and tried to take a nap. But soon after, the airline worker and a cop showed up, and they are not ducking around and want her off the plane. She tries to plead and cry, etc., but they are not having it. And maybe in a moment of panic or just plain self-preservation, the cop asks if we're together. And I blurt out, no, shaking my head emphatically. I get kill dagger eyes from her as she shot up and grabbed her bag and followed the cop out. She was also swearing and screaming the whole way out. Now obviously, this is well after the event I'm posting this, but when she did eventually get home, she caught the next flight out with the bag checked. LOL. I was there to pick her up. She obviously thought I was the a-hole, and to be honest, almost everyone I know thinks I'm an a-hole except my boss and coworkers, who for context were very much relying on me to be back on time, which I gave my word I would for an important project that was time sensitive. They were all very happy I didn't get thrown off too. So am I the a-hole for this self-preservation? Am I the a-hole? Comment said, honestly, I was ready to rake you over the coals, but now I'm thinking, not the a-hole. This isn't like your fiancé had an anxiety attack over the fear of flying. It sounds to me like a full-on grown woman temper tantrum, which only happened because she didn't listen to your travel advice. Another comment said, not the a-hole, and please seriously consider whether you want events like this to be a normal part of your life, because someone who reacts like that when she knows she is in the wrong is not going to change. Although, if not for the work thing, and if you wanted to save the relationship, you probably should have gotten off with her. Not because she was anyway in the right, but because she is going to hold this over your head and sulk for a very long time. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for eating my husband's entire birthday cake by myself? I'll preface this by saying that my husband's family and I don't get along, like at all. We're rarely ever on good terms, and for my mental health I decided to put distance between us, especially after I was blamed for my most recent miscarriage. That happened 3 months ago. My husband can still see and visit them whenever he wants. For me, I don't attend any of their events, not even Thanksgiving nor Christmas. My husband's 30th birthday was 2 days ago. I planned to celebrate with him. I bought a cake and a gift, but he said that his family invited him to celebrate his birthday and he really wanted to go because the birthday parties his family throws are like no others. We had an argument over this, but he told me to wait for him till he finishes celebrating there with his family, then we could celebrate together at home and eat cake. After he left, I felt so terrible. I called him, but he turned his phone off. I was so mad I took the cake and brought it to the living room and started eating from it. I ate the whole thing, not saving him a single piece. I guess I was so angry it made me hungry. He came home and saw what I did and blew up, saying I did this to be spiteful and to punish him for not ditching his family on his birthday, like I wanted him to. I reminded him I paid for the cake, but he called me petty and nuts. He ranted, and then he said he didn't get to eat cake at his parents' house because lots of kids were there and he didn't get enough cake. And what I did was 10 times worse. He's been upset with me ever since. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. What kind of person prioritized, let alone speaks to people that blamed his wife for miscarrying? These are horrible people. You are wise to avoid them and deserved a whole cake while he deserved nothing. I'm so sorry for your loss.
The next story is titled, Karen's Calls 911 When I Won't Let Her Break Into My House. Gets knocked out cold and arrested by police. I press charges. Growing up in India, I always had big dreams for myself. I wanted to travel the world and experience new cultures, but I never imagined that I would one day marry an Englishwoman and move to a new country. Life truly has a way of surprising you, and that's exactly what happened to me. I met my wife while we were both studying for our masters. She was kind, intelligent, and had a smile that could light up any room. We hit it off almost instantly, and it wasn't long before we started dating. I remember feeling so nervous when I introduced her to my family, but they welcomed her with open arms. However, there was one person who made our lives miserable, my mother-in-law. She was a Karen to the core and despised me because of my race and culture. She would constantly belittle me and make racist comments. It was hard, but I tried my best to ignore her and not let it affect my relationship with my wife. As our relationship grew stronger, we decided to get married. We had a beautiful ceremony with friends and family, but my mother-in-law made it clear that she was not happy about our union. She refused to participate in the wedding and even made rude comments to me during the reception. Despite her hostility towards me, my wife and I were determined to make our marriage work. We moved to a new city and started building a life together. We both had promising careers and were excited about our future, but things took a turn when we decided not to invite my mother-in-law to our Diwali party. We knew she would only complain and make everyone uncomfortable. However, she showed up anyway, drunk and belligerent. She even threw a burning sparkler at me, which narrowly missed me. That was the final straw, and we cut all ties with her. Months went by and my wife gave birth to our daughter. It was a beautiful and joyous occasion, but my mother-in-law was nowhere to be found. We had decided not to let her meet our daughter because of her alcoholism and erratic behavior. She threatened to call the police, but they knew her reputation and didn't take her seriously. One day, she showed up at our door with an empty vodka bottle, screaming and cursing at us. We called the police, but it took them a while to arrive. When they did, my mother-in-law pulled out a knife, and in a moment of instinct, I pushed the door hard, knocking her out cold. The police arrived and arrested her, and we pressed charges. She served a year in jail, but even that didn't change her. She still blamed me for everything and refused to take responsibility for her actions. After much consideration, we decided to get a restraining order against her to ensure the safety of our family. It was a difficult decision, but we knew it was the right one. We thought that was the end of it, but we were wrong. A few months after the incident, we received a letter from my mother-in-law's lawyer. She was suing us for emotional distress and slander. It was outrageous and completely baseless, but we had to go through the legal process anyway. It was a long and stressful battle, but we eventually won the case. My mother-in-law had to pay for our legal fees, and we were able to put the whole ordeal behind us. As I sit here watching my daughter play, I can't help but think about how much my life has changed since I met my wife. Despite the challenges we faced, we're still together and stronger than ever. And while my mother-in-law may never change, we've learned to stand up for ourselves and protect our family.
The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my husband for using a room in my house for my WFH job? I'm a 32-year-old female. I began working from home 2 months ago. My husband bought the house we live in before we got together. He calls it his property, which is fine by me. The house is small, has only 2 rooms, one of which used to be empty till I started using it as an office for my WFH job. All was going fine with my job till he sat me down last night saying he's expecting 30% profit from whatever I get from my job since he provides the office for my work. I was completely caught off guard by this. I asked if he was serious, and he went on about being his home and how he could be using this room for his own purpose, since it's his property. I said no and called him unreasonable, which led to a blow-up. I yelled at him saying he won't get a penny, and he pitched a fit and accused me of taking full advantage, even though there's no mortgage to be paid. I do all the chores in the house, as well as share pay the bills in half. He got his family involved in this, and they're split. His mom thinks I'm being difficult, and that 30% is not a huge amount, and that this room is providing stability for my work-from-home job. So my husband should just get some sort of benefits. Am I the a-hole for putting my foot down and refusing to pay a penny? Comment said, not the a-hole. Time to immediately stop paying bills and doing all the housework. Move into your office. If he wants to treat you like a tenant, act like one. Do not combine your money with his. Pay him the going rate of tenancy. Start looking for a new place to live, because this marriage is over. It's just a financial agreement to him. Another comment said your husband is being unreasonable and is clearly signaling to you that the house you live in is not your home. That is not a situation I would want to be in. Personally, does he charge you rent for use of the bathroom and shower? Do you charge him for sex? The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole because I am forcing my parents to choose between two options they loathe? I'm a 38-year-old female, and I have recently gotten a not great medical diagnosis and prognosis. I am at peace with it. So I have sat down with my husband and figured out my will. Obviously, he will be receiving most of the estate. He must take care of himself and our kids. He and I both have decent, if not spectacular, careers, and he likes his work. My oldest brother is a gigantic D-bag. He's an addict, and my parents have wasted their lives trying to help him. They spent so much of their time and money on him, they had very little for my sister or me. I don't hold this against them. I love my kids, and I can understand the urge to help them with their problems. The real issue is that my brother has abandoned my nieces with my parents. I tried to get custody of them, but I am not a member of their church, and my parents cut me off when I left home to get a college education instead of staying home and helping them like a good daughter should. Their congregation helped them hire a lawyer to keep the girls away from me. But strangely enough, after the girls were out of my reach, they stopped getting any financial support. So on my well, I am leaving my nieces money. Not for them to spend however they want. It's only to go to pay for their post-secondary education. If it isn't used for that by the time they are 25, it will be donated to a charity that my parents hate. It advocates for women and reproductive rights. I sent my parents a copy of my will so they know what was coming. They are the kind of people who would take out a loan counting on money from my death to bail them out. They are calling me an a-hole for not giving them the money to take care of my nieces. They are complaining because they are going in debt taking care of the girls. I offered again to take custody with my husband. If I have them for 2 years, I know I can get them on a path away from that church. My parents won't relent and are saying that they will challenge my will. If I leave it like this, good luck. My lawyer is confident that I have protected the money. I just heard from my brother. He is calling me an a-hole for depriving his kids of help and forcing my parents into a crappy position. I asked him when the last time he sent them money to help with his kids was. He yelled obscenities and hung up. My husband supports my decision, but a lot of my family is calling me and asking me to help my parents with no strings attached. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not only are you not the a-hole, but you are an absolute badass. I'm sorry to hear about your prognosis. It's a terrible situation, but you could not possibly handle it any better. You sound like you've done your research, and you've got things covered, so feel free to disregard this advice. You might want to give them a minimum amount so they won't be able to contest the will. Another comment said, not the a-hole. I'm very proud of what you're doing for your nieces. Your parents suck and don't deserve a goddamn cent. On a personal note, though, I couldn't get through college by the time I was 25 for medical reasons. Sticking it to your parents through progressive charities might feel good, and I fully support it, but maybe once your nieces are adults, make sure they can receive physical and mental care. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend that we cannot afford for me to be her sugar daddy. I'm a 27-year-old male. My girlfriend is 23, is beautiful, and most of her friends are also physically attractive women as well. And they like to party with rich men they meet. My girlfriend and I have been together for a couple of years. I make a decent living, but I'm not NBA rich. I don't have a trust fund. I'm not a tech millionaire. I just make a very good salary and bonuses, enough to have paid a good portion of my house and to have graduated without debt. I want to retire young enough to enjoy my life, so I invest and save most of my money. Not all. I'm still enjoying my life now. I'm taking us to an all-inclusive in Jamaica for New Year's, but she is jealous of her friends. They get lavish gifts, and they go out for dinner all the time. She loves me and we have plans, but she keeps bringing up all the things her friends get from their male admirers. I finally snapped and said that I could not afford to be a sugar daddy. She said her friends aren't like that. So I pointed out that they literally do not make enough money to support the lifestyles they have. I pointed out that one of them drives a $100,000 Lexus and she works part-time at a restaurant as a hostess. She says that I'm calling her friends sex workers, which I would not do in judging them, so I asked her to explain how her friends afford dinner out at very expensive restaurants while earning minimum wage in some cases. She now thinks I'm an a-hole for making what I feel are apt observations. She asked if I consider her that way because I pay for everything and earn 6 times what she does. I told her no, that I'm proud to have a teacher for a girlfriend, but she is still sulking. Comment said, you have 2 choices. Sit down with her and have an adult conversation that although she may be jealous of all the gifts her friends get, you cannot get her all the same things. If you're paying for most of the luxuries, bills, whatever, you get a big say on what luxuries are enjoyed, or you can end the relationship. She sounds a bit immature, not the a-hole. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for having my husband fired? I'm a 29-year-old female and have an ex, a 35-year-old man. Richard, it's been 3 years since we were separated due to him being abusive and cheating, but we are not divorced as divorce is expensive in my country, and whenever I apply for divorce, Richard insists on mediation, so divorce is not granted, as one of us tries to save the marriage. He lives with his mistress, and they have a kid together that was conceived when we were still together. Due to both harassing and abusing me, I have a restraining order against both. My employer is aware of all of this, as the utility company my ex works for supplies the buildings their offices are at one of the major suppliers in the country. Now to the actual events. Due to restrictions, everyone is currently working from home with a few days in the office. Richard decided to show up at my work with his kid and demanded to see me for child support money since we are still legally married. As my employer is aware of the situation, the reception refused to tell him if I am in the office or not. I was, and asked Richard to leave. Richard did not, and security was called. As he was with his child, security did not use force to remove Richard, so reception threatened to call the utility company he works for. Richard didn't believe the reception can do it. So long story short, him and his mistress were fired with immediate effect, as Richard showing up at my work has been seen as gross misconduct, and they discovered Richard was his mistress's boss. Apparently his employer didn't know they were together, and it's strictly forbidden to have a relationship with someone who is directly employed by you. The utility company apologized for Richard's actions and gave a considerable discount for their services to make sure the news of what happened wouldn't spread. Since they were fired, I'm getting calls from unknown numbers of various Richards, his mistress's family members, saying I'm responsible for it, and just a jealous a-hole for getting them fired to get Richard back. We still have some friends in common, and they believe him getting fired and losing the only source of income they have is too harsh, and I should have prevented that, shouldn't have spoken in the beginning about what happened. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. It doesn't even sound like you had a role in any of this. Like it all went down with you unaware even. Another comment said, a guy that you have a restraining order against showed up at your job, made a scene, and got fired. You obviously are not the a-hole here. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.